was born in Rainbow City, Alabama on the 16th of May, 99 too. I had a hard time growing up. My dad was a drunken, racist asshole. My mom was a religious nut. And I was an only child. My father used to beat me for no reason at all. Sometimes he was just in a bad mood. I had an awful time in high school too. I was bullied for a load of reasons. Firstly, because I was fat. Secondly, I just wasn't able to make much friends. I couldn't really relate to many people, and therefore I didn't really make many friends. I had one friend though. Not gonna name him, but he put me on the wrong track altogether. He was weird and a drug addict. For a long time I had an addiction to cocaine because of him. He used to slip me coke between classes. It was terrible, and I was only 14 at the time. I only partook in this because he was my only friend, and I didn't know any better. I don't know why I trusted him. I guess I just didn't know any better. One day when I was 15, he took me out to a remote area and he shot himself. I called an ambulance and police showed up and questioned me. Thankfully, they came to the conclusion I had nothing to do with his death, and I didn't. Life became more and more traumatic in Alabama. Now that I was 16, I decided to drop out of school and run from home. I stole $500 from my parents' wallets and used the money to travel to New York, where I got a job as a bartender. It was there in New York where I got interested in activism. I took part in various protests and strikes around New York City, and it really inspired me to do more with my life. My bartender salary was just about paying my rent for my rundown apartment in the Bronx. I got jumped just while traveling home at least 3 times a week. It was hard, but I managed it. It was around this time I also became a vegan. Just from studying the history of activism, I saw how poorly the animals are treated, and also how cruel and barbaric slaughterhouses are. I don't go near any meat anymore. I eat lots of nuts and take protein shakes now and then to keep me strong at the same time. I went on a hunger strike for 15 days outside Wall Street after 200 people lost their jobs because the shares for a certain company went down. After 15 days I was arrested, although I did make a point. I was released after a week. After I was released, I got calls from a couple people and was asked to take part in protests and activist movements. I was enjoying my life in New York, but sadly my addiction to cocaine hadn't passed. I had to get somewhere, and I just found a guy who said he could get some for me. Turns out that son of a bitch was part of the mafia in New York. I got involved with the wrong people. I didn't know they were the mafia until my dealer told me to meet him at his office in Harlem, so I did. It was in an alleyway, and before I could knock on the door, I was knocked unconscious from behind me. The next thing I know, I was in a chair in the middle of a warehouse with a gun to my head and forced to give all the information I knew about my activist partners. It turns out they were screwing around with them. I had to give any addresses I knew, all the information I had. Mafia got it. When they were done, they tossed me out on the street and told me to come back 4 a.m. on Friday. They would talk more. I came back at the time that they said, and I was brought to the warehouse again. They put a wire on me and told me to just go around town and perform daily tasks. The next day, 6 of my activist friends were missing. The mafia got me more cocaine for helping them, but I felt like shit. I didn't know what to do with myself. I was lost. The mafia were still on my back, and a bunch of people I've been talking to were now dead. Then I met a girl. She seemed like heaven in a human body. I was in love. I was also in Starbucks. I walked over to her and offered to buy her a coffee, and I just sat down and talked to her for a bit. We had a bunch of stuff in common. We were dating for about a week, and then it happened. I once again found myself knocked unconscious and tied up in a warehouse. This time she was there too. The mobsters beat her, then gave me a gun and made me shoot her. There's a gun pointing at my head too, so I had to do it. And they gave me a tattoo by force on my arm, which says nobody fucks with us. Then let me go. I lost the woman of my dreams, and I was the one who pulled the trigger. The mafia said they want to give me a message, and if I act like I've never heard of them, they'll act like they've never heard of me. So that's what I did. This is the point in time where I'd given up on activism completely, started drinking, and my addiction to coke grew stronger. I was in extreme depression at the age of only 20, and it was killing me. I moved to Manhattan, and that's where I got an interest in politics. I contacted the mayor about some of the issues of our people, but I was just ignored. He didn't give two shits about my problems, or my cause, or anything. He's just like sitting on his ass in a comfortable position. I mailed a letter in, and I still haven't got a response. They say they care about the people, but really all they care about is having a certain level of popularity. There's absolutely no point trying to reason with politicians, because all they will do is lie to you to get your support so that they can get elected. You may think I'm exaggerating, but look at President Obama, for instance. On his first day, he said he would close Guantanamo Bay. 5 years later, do you know what? It's still open. See how politicians lie to the good, innocent people, take advantage of their ignorance to gain power. They do this regularly, and this is one of the reasons I became interested in activism. Politicians today don't give two shits about the good of the common man. Woman, child, and animal. They are selfish, greedy, sinister pigs. I propose that our system should be changed so that everything is divided equally among men, and politicians live the same lifestyle we do. It is the only way that politicians will be able to understand our people. I had so much trouble in New York. It was hell. The mafia were after me. I was sick of politicians. I had a dead-end job. People weren't listening to my activism. I couldn't stand it. I then saw a story in the paper. It said that Harry Gold had been elected the mayor of Los Venturas. I looked into the guy. Turned out he was an asshole, like most other politicians. Raising taxes, not caring about the people. I decided I wanted to take my activism here. This is what I want to do. I have decided the way I'm going to make money, I'm going to give people rides around town, while also spreading the word of my activism and other things. I got the first flight to Las Venturas and arrived here at 6 o'clock. I know what I want to do, and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. Las Venturas needs a brave fellow like me to help it wake up and smell the coffee. If I don't do this, nobody will. I've seen very few organized activist organizations, but as soon as I get enough money from taxiing, I'll be able to do so. Even if it's just a small little group of people at first, I'll be able to do it, and I believe in myself. It's my destiny, it's my fate. Las Venturas needs me, and I need Las Venturas.